man.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to a very, very special day in the college football world. This is a debut episode of the College Football Cut. My name is Adam Mack. I'm here joined alongside my co-host, Jared Terrell. Jared, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. We're finally here. We made it. We're doing it.
I know. We finally made it. We had some test shows, a lot of planning, but, it is a great day to, get back in. Talk some college football. Just last week, I got to go to the Marshall Navy game, and just to see, full stadium, wild student sections, it was so special. 2020 sucked, but to get back into the college football season, nothing is better than that. I got the NFL game on right now. Are you ready to talk some football?
Absolutely, man.
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Now, obviously, the big story from week one, big game of the week, we had number 5 Georgia versus number 3 Clemson. In the end, Georgia Bulldogs defeated the Clemson Tigers 10-3. What are your thoughts on the game from week one?
That was a good game, man. I don't know about you, but it was enjoyable to watch. It's one of those few times where you watch a game that's low scoring, but it's still just great fun. I mean, those guys were just smacking the crap out of each other. It was good football. Tough loss for Clemson. We'll get into that later, but overall, a really enjoyable game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think going into the game, everyone was talking about the offenses. You had 2 star quarterbacks, JT Daniels, DJ from Clemson, and everyone was talking about these offenses. In the end, it was a big defensive game. The only touchdown was a pick 6 from Georgia, 2 field goals, one by each team. So overall, it wasn't this big defensive or offensive fire crapshoot that we were gonna expect.
Yeah.
So it really showed the defenses how important they are, and it was an exciting game to watch.
Yep.
I was gonna hope for a better game out of JT Daniels, who's my Heisman pick going into the season, but in the end, those defenses were coming out were being elite.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. And especially this early in the season, I'm not getting down on those offenses at all, because early in the season, defense is going to prevail. So, I think there's still a lot more to come for both offenses from Georgia and Clemson.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for Georgia, I think they're going to end up leaving this game with, a lot more confidence, because, look at their schedule. It's the SEC, obviously. They have a tough schedule and a lot of tough games they have to play. They had an opportunity to play a top 3 team in Clemson, week 1. So to be able to, go from the rest of the season and play teams at that high caliber level, that's going to help them down the road. They're not going to be, when they get tested, they've already been able to experience this one. So now going into week 2, week 3, rest of the season, they're going to be ready for whatever is thrown at them.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, the one thing about Clemson, I was hoping a lot more from them is, obviously going into the season, they have one thing on their mind. They want to win a national championship. The expectation is to make the playoffs. Expectation is to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, at the end of the season, everyone's going to say this was a quality loss for Georgia. Another big loss for the ACC was UNC went down.
Yeah.
And so now we have the top 2 teams in the ACC both losing week 1. So now I'm putting up the question, can the ACC still make the playoffs with either Clemson or UNC with each of them losing week 1? What are your thoughts on that?
It's going to be tough, because Clemson, I think as of right now, they don't have any other opponents that are even ranked in the top 25 right now. So even though it was a loss, they might have to ride on the curtails of a close loss against Georgia, who may eventually be ranked number 1 in the country. And maybe that'll get them there. I don't know. But their strength of schedule alone, it's not really going to help them out.
Absolutely. Talk about their strength of schedule. Clemson doesn't have that strength of schedule. The ACC, they're not playing, teams like Georgia does, on a consistent basis. My boy Mike here brings up a good point. A playoff without Clemson, it's never heard of. I think the last time was the first year for the playoffs when Clemson didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's kind of one of those things that at some point they don't need to make it. They can't make it. We all thought about Alabama. Alabama's going to make it every year. They punched their ticket. Mm-hmm. 2 years ago, Alabama missed the playoffs. They were in a dominant SEC conference that year and ended up losing to LSU and Auburn, knocked them out of the playoffs. Maybe this early loss to Georgia and maybe a slip up later in the season for Clemson could push them out of the playoffs. And for the first time in a long time for Dabo, he has to go to a regular bowl game and not really plan for much of anything.
Right.
The kind of same thing goes for UNC. They were a team that kind of going into the season like, we can beat Clemson. We can make the playoffs. They come in week 1 and they lose to Virginia Tech. And Sam Howell was one of those guys that he had one thing on his mind. I want to win a Heisman. I'm the best quarterback in the country.
Yep.
You come out week 1 and you don't perform. So can you see UNC, even with this early loss to Virginia Tech, finding their way into the playoffs or even at least knocking on the door for the playoffs?
Because they have an even tougher climb, I think. They fell back so far. They have a little bit better of a schedule that will help them get there. I think they still play Miami and Notre Dame yet. I know Miami just came off of a loss to Alabama and fell back in the rankings a little bit, but at least UNC has the schedule there to help them make up some ground. I don't know if it's going to be enough, and they'd have to win out too. They'd have to win some big games. So we'll see if they win the rest of their games from here. I can't say that they're going to make the playoffs, but I know that's what they're going to have to do to get in.
Yeah, again, it's tough for me to look at that UNC team and say they're going to be a top 4 team in the country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that you expected week 1 to be, this is a top 4 team. They didn't look like top 4 teams. Oklahoma struggled against Tulane.
Man.
Can't make the argument that they're a top 4 team.
Yeah.
Alabama, again, dominates as they always do. Clemson, they lost. Georgia, they won, but they didn't look great in that game.
Mm-hmm.
There's not that clear top 4 this year, which, could play in Clemson's favor a little bit down the road for right now. But, looking at it right now, I don't like the chances for the ACC to make the playoffs. I don't like Clemson at the moment. I definitely don't like UNC.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So, again, it was a crazy week 1. I saw a lot of teams, like I kind of said, Oklahoma, they looked horrendous against Tulane. They should have walked into that game and put up 50 without question. It was supposed to be Lincoln Riley's best defense. They looked terrible. We'll start with the players. What player from week 1 surprised you?
So my biggest one, there's a lot actually. My biggest one that I wanted to talk about with you was Jack Cohn from Notre Dame. He transferred from Wisconsin, I believe it was. He had to beat out a couple guys this year to get the starting job, but against a pretty fast and physical Florida State defense, he went 26 for 35, 366 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did throw 1 pick, but for a first major start at a new school, that's pretty damn impressive.
My favorite thing I've ever heard about Jack Cohn was that the fact that he committed to Notre Dame his freshman year of high school as a lacrosse player.
Oh,
it means
really?
nothing to do with this, but it's just a little fun fact. Kind of go back to Sam Howell. Christian wants you to add him, all people to add him, because he said Sam Howell played better than Spencer Rattler week 1. He said, don't at me, but if you've ever met Christian, even better. Jack Cohn over Ian Book. Actually, solid point, Christian. I don't like to agree with you, but, I was really curious what the Notre Dame offense was going to look like without Ian Book. And I've never been a huge fan of Notre Dame. They seem to either be really good all season. Thank you, Christian. They seem to be really good all season, run into a top team in the playoffs, they lose.
Yeah.
Or they seem to be, this is our year, we're going to win. They struggle week 1. They struggled week 1 against Florida State. Obviously,
Mhm.
first of all, shout out to Mackenzie Milton. That was
Amazing.
truly sensational. But Jack Cohn, again, he looked really, really good out there for Notre Dame.
Mhm.
It just sucks that Notre Dame just didn't look good against Florida State. So that's why he's not kind of being considered right now in those, top quarterbacks from week 1.
Right. Absolutely.
For me, a guy that kind of stuck out, and I'm so confused why we don't talk about him as much, is Taluya Tagovailoa from Maryland. And I don't think we've ever talked about Maryland highlights, but first of all, my little sister goes to Maryland, so I told her I would make sure I'd shout her out. So, Danny, if you're watching, I love you, and here's your Maryland shout out. But, he's always going to be compared. He's always going to be Tua's brother. No matter what, until he wins a national championship, and probably 2, he's always going to be Tua's brother. So he's not going to get the attention and the hype that other people are going to get. But then look what he did. 332 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 70% completion rate. And it's not like he did that against an FBS school. It's not like he did that against a G5 school. He did that against WVU in West Virginia in a Big 12 program.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, West Virginia is not, that Oklahoma or Iowa State Big 12 program. But West Virginia is still always a very solid program. So he's a quarterback that, put up some really good numbers. And even last year had some really good games. Upset Penn State. Played pretty decent against Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing about the 2020 season, if you had a bad year, it's because of COVID. We don't worry about that. But if you had a really good year, it's okay. It's COVID. Don't worry about it. It's only a fluke.
Yeah.
He came out week 1 against a Big 12 program and played phenomenal. Yeah. This could be the player for Maryland to, I always say, and again, Danny, if she's watching, she's going to get mad. I always say Maryland's one of the armpits of the Big 10. He could be that player that helps Maryland get away from that armpit and maybe move like Illinois into that role alongside Rutgers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Big swing like that. Who knows, man?
Yeah. Again, going into the season, everyone was talking about these big quarterbacks, Sam Ratner, Sam Howell, Carson Strong from Nevada. Every year, we always get introduced to these new quarterbacks early on, and they kind of just under the radar all offseason, then they take off. Joe Burrow in 2019 wasn't being talked about. He's projected as a 6th-round pick going into that year.
Yeah.
Ended up having the best year, and here she is. Love you too, Danny. Jack Cohn or Tagovailoa could be 2 of those guys that if they keep progressing and having good years,
mm-hmm.
they could be one of those guys that maybe move into that role and start, starting to realize come, end of the season. Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati, another guy we've been talking about, 5 touchdowns for Cincinnati against Miami of Ohio.
Man.
But again, insert. Thank you, Christian. But another thing, we talked about players that, were surprises. There's one team for me that surprised me more than anybody, and that's the Texas Longhorns.
Yeah.
The Tom Herman era for UT was horrendous. He brought the team back to try to go back to the glory days. Sam Ehlinger is always going to be a meme now for saying we're back, and then following up the next year by playing horrendous.
Yep.
They bring Steve Sarkisian, the Bulls, top assistant from the year before. Trying to rebuild his career, but you wonder, going into the year, was Coach Sark going to be able to bring Texas back to the glory? And I get it's week 1. They played a G5 team. I love Louisiana. They looked phenomenal
mm-hmm.
during the game. 400 yards total offense. They only gave up less than 100 yards rushing. And Hudson Card, I don't even know. Hudson Card, he looked better than Sam Ehlinger ever did. I'm hoping that he can bring them back to their glory, but they look phenomenal. It's like that's like vintage Texas that they were looking like, on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I missed that game, so I was just stat watching that one. But they put up some pretty good numbers, and they Longhorns got a pretty good tailback too, don't they?
Yeah, one of those guys that was rushing over the board.
Yeah, he had one rushing touchdown, one reception touchdown, I think. 70 some yards receiving. I think I got him here. Yeah, 73 yards receiving and then 103 yards rushing. He had a pretty good day.
Yeah, again, it was good to see that Texas is kind of back to where they were, from a few years ago, and I'm hoping that Coach Sark can bring them back to what they were, because it's such a historic program. Yeah. And more specifically, once they move to the SEC,
if
they keep playing how they used to, they're going to be at the bottom tier. So this is the time to build up that confidence, build up that program into a top-tier program. So once they do enter the SEC in the next 5 years, they're going to be ready and up there with the Alabamas, the Georgias, LSU, at Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is a good start for him, and, hopefully they can keep on building. Which team was a big surprise for you going into week 1?
Well, I had a couple here. One, first of all, being Virginia Tech. First and foremost, I want to talk about how awesome it was for Virginia Tech to have a home game again, do an Enter Sandman at the beginning of the game. That's going to be hard for any team playing there, no matter how good they're supposed to be or how good they are. So Virginia Tech beating UNC, I think that's a big win. With it kind of just going back to how we were talking about the ACC, that really shook things up. I think rankings came out, and I think Virginia Tech's at like 19 now. So they're ahead of UNC and Miami, I believe. I forget where they fell at, but we'll see how Virginia Tech plays out the rest of the year. Otherwise, I got to give a little shout out to South Dakota State. I'm from South Dakota, so definitely a Jackrabbits fan. They're FCS runner-ups last year, so they came down to Fort Collins and beat the CSU Rams. And I was in Laramie this weekend, actually, so just about 40 minutes north of Fort Collins. So I could feel the victory from that far away. It was pretty awesome.
That's awesome. Again, it's always good to root for those, the FCS and G5 schools. They don't obviously get the attention, but you look at these games, and sometimes those games could always be the better games of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go to the Marshall Navy game down in Annapolis. And I was, hesitant. We lost a lot of guys to the transfer portal. We have a new head coach, Charles Huff, who's the number 1 recruiter in football, came from Alabama. You don't have high expectations for going in week 1, but man, it was that team looked electric. Minute, 20 seconds, they walked down the field and scored. Just an overall dominant game, block kicks, interceptions, fumbles. It got you excited to get back into college football. And a couple other surprises. I'm looking at the rankings right now. I think a big surprise, for how kind of big of a win was Penn State over Wisconsin. Going into Wisconsin, and it wasn't a big high scoring game. It was a pretty defensive game. I think Penn State only won 17-10 or something like that. I know it came down to an interception right on the goal line to end with a minute left. But Penn State is one of those sneaky teams for me this year. Last year, again, go back to COVID, they started the year 0-5. Last time I checked, that was 2020. They started 0-5, then proceeded to go 4-0. Sean Clifford is back. Johan Dotson is the returning wide receiver. Mike Urick is the new offensive coordinator. This could be a team that, gives maybe Ohio State a little bit of trouble. I still think Ohio State's the better team.
Right.
But he's definitely, it's not going to be as walk in the park as, all my Ohio State fans. And if Christian's still watching, he's probably all pissed off at me that I semi-bashed Ohio State.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree, because you and I had talked about this before, where we were going back and forth on who we thought was going to win each conference, and when we got to the Big 12, we just couldn't think of anybody that was going to compete with Ohio State. So it'll be or Big 10, excuse me. So it'll be fun to see how it plays out, see how Penn State develops, and see if they can give Ohio State a run.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just the whole college football week 1, it was. Oh, you're a UNC fan now. course you are.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think I saw him declare that on Twitter somewhere, if I'm not mistaken.
For everyone who's new to the cut, Christian declares a lot of things on Twitter, and I simply just can't keep track of it every day. So
No.
it's good to know. I'll keep that in note. Fine, I'll talk about UNC. They look like shit. There you go, Christian. But, it seemed like, just going to week one, you expected a lot of typical college football. You expected Alabama to dominate.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Christian. You expected Alabama to dominate. You expected Ohio State to dominate. Ohio State struggled against Minnesota. In the end, C.J. Stroud, Ryan Day were able to pull out the victory, but overall, it seemed like it was not that typical, we were expecting these dominating players.
Yeah. I'm with you. And, and I kind of wonder if that goes back to kind of what we touched on earlier, where sometimes offenses are going to start out a little bit slow. Granted, you wouldn't think that Ohio State would start out slow against a team like Minnesota, but, maybe they just kind of have the blues from getting a new quarterback in there too.
Absolutely. Again, it was a weird first week of college football. It's great to be back. Going into the season, we were talking a lot about big topic of conversation was the Heisman Trophy. Who's going to win the Heisman Trophy? It seems like it feels like this season, even though there's a clear preseason favorite, there did seem to be a big toss-up. There was, in my opinion, a good 10 guys who all were capable of winning the Heisman, but the two most popular ones were Ratner and Sam Howell from UNC.
Yeah.
After watching them week one, are you convinced that they're still the top tier choices?
No, especially Sam Howell. Especially he's dropped down quite a bit. I'm actually looking at the odds right now, and he's dropped down to 8th now, and I think he was top 4 before that. And I know it was a road game in a tough atmosphere, but if a guy's going to win the Heisman, that's where they really got to show up. That's where they got to make people believe it. Who was the other one you said? Rattler?
Yeah. Is he still has to be still the favorite. Or is he dropped?
He's number 2.
Let me guess who number 1 is.
I bet you can't.
Is it not who I think it is?
Who is it?
Well, as of right now, I think the Heisman Trophy is the top person for the trophy is very clear and evident. And if he continues on the way he's going, is it what? That's not what I wanted. I got to get this banner away. I'm new at this.
Don't mess this up.
I'm already messing it up, but if we to continue the season, he keeps playing like he's playing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Bryce Young's Heisman to lose?
As of week one, yeah.
344 yards, 4 touchdowns against Miami. Going into the season, we didn't really know what we were getting out of him. He's this freshman quarterback. He's taken over for Mac Jones, who had arguably one of the best seasons for an Alabama quarterback. But also bigger, new wide receivers, new running back, new offensive coordinator, new everything. Only thing that was kind of similar was Nick Saban was still there. You didn't really know what we were getting out of him. And then first week one, he throws 344 yards for 4 touchdowns. And after how, all the other so-called Heisman Trophy favorites did, at this point, is it his Heisman Trophy to lose, or is there someone that's, has the top 10? Who technically is the favorite according to Vegas?
It is Bryce Young.
I mean, after that week, I can't imagine someone. How could it be? Who do you think right now? Is it Bryce Young's Heisman to lose?
Well, so if you follow the idea that we were talking about already, where all the top guys that should have performed well didn't, and they didn't necessarily play against tough opponents, they still didn't perform well. And then you look at Bryce Young, for example, they played Miami. Sure, that's not exactly top tier right now, but they were pretty highly ranked. Were they 14th, I think, going into week one? Mm-hmm, so they played a pretty good opponent. And as of right now, maybe a team that's going to make a good run at the ACC. But they played a pretty good opponent. It was his first start, correct? And he did what he was supposed to do. He's going past his expectations, whereas the other guys didn't.
Yeah,
they fell short.
We didn't really know what we were getting out of him. Freshman quarterback, and signed him over $1 million in endorsements before he ever took a snap.
Mm-hmm.
If he keeps playing like this, you got to realize he's only a freshman. How much better can this guy get? I hate to say freshman, he's going to be, remember Trevor Lawrence, he's going to win 2 Heismans, but Bryce Young walked into, the best football program in the country and absolutely played a brilliant game. And it's not like they played a shitty opponent. They were playing Miami, who at the time, was 14th in the country. I had no high hopes for Miami. I hate Manny Diaz with a passion because what he did to Temple. But Miami was going through more of a rebuild. Alabama's going through a reload. Bryce Young's saying, are we even going through a reload? Because what I saw, he looked a lot better than Mac Jones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he looked good. He looked good. As a really exciting week 1 for him. I feel like it's going to be dangerous going against Mercer this week because he played so well against Miami. So
it's not going to look good when he throws for less yards, but he might have those numbers, within the first quarter, knowing Alabama.
Do you have his stats from last week in front of you?
Yeah, Bryce Young.
Yeah, how many rushing yards did he have?
2. He was not big. He didn't use much of his feet. He was just utilizing that arm. 344 yards for Alabama. For Alabama was phenomenal, and he obviously that's something that they can work on. With the rushing game, I know they have a new rush game coordinator there. Charles Huff obviously went to Marshall, so that's going to look a lot different. And I think the big concern I had with Alabama week 1 was their coaching staff is just so new. Granted, Bill O'Brien is there. He's a phenomenal offensive-minded coach for college, but it's his first game for Alabama. You would have think Coach Sark was there or Lane Kiffin was there the way this Alabama team was looking. And again, they always say they don't rebuild, they reload. It doesn't feel like they reloaded. It feels like this is still the same dominant team that they played last year.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, it is my favorite time of the show. Every week, we're going to break down some of the games going on this week, typical college game day fashion. But before we do that, we actually have some celebrity guest pickers today. Now, this first person, I don't know how best to describe him. According to his bio on the Cut website, it says, and I quote, "I'm a mess." And I've known this guy for about 6 years. Yeah, about 6 years. He's taught me a lot. He mentored me through my time at, Cleveland State, helping me deal with, shitty intramural participants. His fraternity really hated me because they didn't like my calls. Now, when I bring him on, it's not Matt Patricia. Mr. Randy Hall. How you doing, Randy?
Fair.
There he is.
Good reference. I'm doing great, man.
And
great
you're wearing a Lawyers League shirt tonight. Look at
I
that.
know, right? It was on accident.
Oh, man, that's it. Randy, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Getting a great game for the first game of the NFL season. Got to catch you guys all this halftime so far. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And we have a second guest.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. I think he might be one of the most hated people on Twitter just because he just, he says what he wants sometimes. And, again, I met him 6 years ago at Cleveland State. He interviewed me for my first job. Very foolish of him. He gave me the job, and, now he's truly stuck with me for a long time. America's bald man, Mr. Christian Williams.
What is up, dude? I like that intro.
I told you it was going to be good.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah.
How are you?
Oh, I know. It's college football, man.
Exactly.
I know.
Marshall's 1-0, baby.
Yeah, they are. You guys have had a great show, I must say. I've been obviously in the comments. I don't know that Christian Williams guy that just wouldn't shut up in the comments. I hate that guy.
Yeah.
I just started following him on Twitter today. He gives great fantasy football advice.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Didn't you quote tweet my start your studs?
Yeah.
Start your studs.
Got a good chuckle out of that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's break down a few different games we got this week. We'll start off with our amazing FCS game of the week. Lindenwood versus the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. I know we have a resident Jackrabbits fan, so we'll let him go last because I know he has a lot more to say than, the three people who don't even know where Lindenwood is. Spoilers, Missouri, I passed it on my road trip. Lindenwood looked horrendous week one from what their stats show, because definitely didn't watch it. South Dakota State dominated Colorado State. I'm gonna take the Jackrabbits. Randy, who you got?
I'm right there with you. They got kind of a spotlight last week and came out big with a huge win. I think they keep that exposure going and keep it rolling.
Christian?
Yeah, I mean, South Dakota State looked really, really good last week. This isn't Pierre Strong, sounds right? Yeah.
Sound familiar.
Yeah, Pierre Strong looked pretty good. And so
come on, Debbie Ryder. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't think he's on too many Debbie radars. But he looked good, and so I'm picking them.
Mr. South Dakota State himself.
Yeah, short and sweet. I'm going with the Jackrabbits. Easy. Pierre Strong had 138 yards, 2 touchdowns against Colorado State Rams. I don't see why not. They're going to beat Lindenwood.
Yeah. Also, I do want to shout out Trey McBride in that game. Big Trey McBride guy. 13 receptions, tight end 1, 2022. Randy and I will talk about him a lot in the next few months.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
I'm obsessed.
You be obsessed about something?
Right?
No.
He's the Justin Fields of tight ends for me.
That's not true. That was Kyle Pitts. Shut up.
That's true.
Hey, listen, it's Christian. He has his bold takes that we all scratch our heads about.
He does, man.
All right. If you know me really well, you know how much I'm a big G5 fan, and I was trying to find a G5 game that was worth talking about, and there simply wasn't one. So it's going to be 9/11 on Saturday. No better time to honor, the troops. 1-0 Air Force travels to Annapolis to take on the Navy midshipmen. I saw Navy play last week live. They looked terrible. One of my friends, Ryan, Rasheen Ali for Marshall, literally ran all over him. A true freshman running back. They looked terrible on defense. They couldn't get anything going on offense. Their special teams, I don't think their special teams coordinator should have a job in football ever again, because he was even worse. You got to give it to Air Force. I'm living in Colorado Springs now. I got to give it to my hometown team now. Randy, who you got?
I'm going Navy, and it's honestly simply just because I think they're going to try and bounce back after being killed through the air last week. Air Force can't pass, so the Navy does have a pretty good stud middle linebacker as well, with a last name I've never heard said, so I'm not going to say it right now. Don't like the spelling. And I think he'll slow down the rushing attack. I know Air Force's quarterback had 3 touchdowns last week on the ground, but hopefully they could slow him down a bit.
Jared, who you got?
I'm going with Air Force too. I mean, I think it's going to be a grinder, a lot of rushing yards, but I think Air Force has the edge in this one.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to take Air Force in this one simply because, the team that passed the ball 5 times last week is certainly going to win. I think they had over 300 rushing yards.
Yeah, something crazy.
And so that's a team, run the damn ball is what I like to say. So Air
Short
Force,
game.
baby.
Yeah. Navy looked terrible last week. I'm happy they lost. I'm happy they lost, though. But we'll move in.
Yeah, that's the thing for me is they didn't look bad against the run. It's just Marshall just killed them through the air. Yeah. It's 400-something yards, right?
Grant Wells for president, man. Just,
screw Heisman. He can't get that president.
No, listen. I was tailgating with his family on Saturday. I got to hype them up.
Fair.
All right, we'll move into some, I guess, better football. There's no question who's going to win this game, so we're going to switch it up a little bit. Over under 40-point margin of victory for Alabama over Mercer. Jared, we talked a little bit about this earlier. Who Over under 40.
You showed me that earlier and I couldn't believe it. I said, is that real? But the crazy thing is I kind of want to take the over. I think that's likely.
That's so bad.
Yeah. I'm gonna back you up there, and I'm gonna say the over is like a lock after how Alabama played last week.
Mhm.
Also, Adam, you referenced I interviewed you for your first job. The person who interviewed me, her name is Rachel, and she went to Mercer. So I'll have to shoot her a text or something this weekend and apologize, but I am taking the over 40-point margin of victory here.
How many Rachel's worked at the CSU Rec Center?
Just a lot.
This was the OG Rachel. She
Yeah.
she brought us all in, actually.
Oh, dear
besides
Lord.
you.
Yeah, besides me. I had the other Rachel.
Yeah, but you were brought in because of us too. So it's her fault too for you as well. I think that's more of the point.
Yep.
Yeah, apologize because Mercer ain't winning.
Yeah. I'll take the over too. I honestly, Alabama's backups could probably put up 20.
Pretty much. Not sure. This is, I think, the highlight of week 1 for me. And it was when Kansas stormed the field after winning their first game since 2019. Do they take the momentum and upset number 17 Coastal Carolina?
As a person that came from a high school that did this exact same thing until we became good because of teams that I were on, I think they lose badly. It's nice to get that one upset win, especially late in the game like they did, but they're getting beat by just a much better team.
I don't even consider it much of an upset. They're a Big 12 program playing an FCS school. They should be winning, and the fact that they stormed the field after beating an FCS program. Jared, I know, getting South Dakota guy. I'm sorry that heartbreaking loss, but are you pity against Kansas, or is Coastal gonna do what we all think is gonna do and get the win?
Oh, Coastal's gonna do what we're thinking they're gonna do. I was actually watching the Kansas University of South Dakota game closely because I was like, oh, we're gonna get 2 South Dakota wins in one night. This is gonna be so great. And then Kansas edged them out. But no, because they've just barely beat a middle of the road Missouri Valley Conference school in the FCS. I can't see them beating Coastal Carolina. There's no way.
No. Same. So shout out Grayson McCall. He's gonna throw all over this team.
Yeah.
Shout out Isaiah Likely. Those are 2 NFL draft prospects that I think are gonna carry Coastal in this game. I did not realize that Coastal bumped all the way up to 17 this week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting. Shout out to Coastal, big fan. So RIP Kansas though.
Yeah, another thing I also with Coastal last week, 600 total yards of rushing. Or no, total offense. Sorry, 600 yards of total offense. And it was led by their 2 running backs. I can't see a way that Kansas is going to be able to stop that dominant of a offense, especially with Shamari Jones and Reese White leading the rush. Yeah, Kansas, you got your win for the year, On to next year.
For the 2 years, actually.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah.
2023, they'll be back.
Yeah.
And shout out those running backs. They were sitting behind CJ Marable last year.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he landed on a practice squad, but an NFL player. So maybe there are 2 more there.
Yeah. Well, we can move on to 2 teams that actually are semi-relevant usually. Stanford will be visiting down number 14 USC. I wasn't a fan of Stanford last week. They looked terrible, and Caden Slovis for USC is trying to make that argument to be a top-tier quarterback. He looked pretty good last week. I don't think he's going to has that potential, but he's trying. Participation trophies, are big, but I think USC is going to get the win here.
Yep, I agree with all that. I'm with it.
Yeah, so First, let me talk about Slovis because I'm like the big Slovis hater here. Across the whole Debbie landscape, I've got people that come at me, of course, on Twitter, on my favorite app, because I said that Keaton Slovis is a day 3 NFL quarterback, and he didn't really do much to stave me off of that last week. Even though they did, I mean, USC looked good. I think they're gonna easily win this game, and then the Slovis hype train is gonna get out of control until UCLA just thumps them. And thumbs Slovis specifically with that pass rush down the road. But yeah, Stanford's bad. Shout out Davis Mills as well for making them look not as bad last year.
Man.
Yeah, USC is winning this one easy. Stanford lost a ton of leadership last year to the draft, and they looked inept on offense last week.
Mm-hmm.
They were terrible. It was gross. It was tough to watch, and it was tough to watch even the highlights.
There was highlights.
There weren't. Yeah, there were lowlights.
Yeah, it's USC is just gonna be too dominant. Stanford lost too much. Got to go with the Trojans. Next game we got another G5 program versus my least favorite team, the Miami Hurricanes. App State go down to face the U. I hate Manny Diaz, and I want App State to be ranked so Marshall can beat them and get ranked soon. So I'm gonna go with App State on this one. But Derek King for Miami looked really good week 1 against Bama. I didn't really know what he was going to look like after the ACL tear and just what Miami was going through. App State just looked really good last week against East Carolina, 450 yards of total offense. Chase Bryce needs to kind of step up a little bit more, I think, especially now he's going against, Miami. But I'm going to go with App State for the upset this week. Jared, who you got?
I think I'm more excited about watching King playing more than I really care about who wins that game. But I think Miami's going to edge out Appalachian State.
All
right. Go
right.
ahead.
All right. I think Miami and King looked great in the second half after they already got blown out. So I really don't care how good they looked last week. I think Appalachian State actually looked really well. Miami couldn't stop the short stuff passing. They couldn't stop the run to save their lives. And Appalachian State actually has a two-headed monster of a backfield that ran for like 230, 240 last week. I think they win.
That's a good word for it too, Randy, because Cameron Peoples is just a beast of a human. He's I think he might be listed at 6 foot, but I think he's actually like 6'1", 6'2". And he runs like it. He's fun to watch, but he's on some draft radars. When I was typing, I was looking up the line, and Miami's only 9-point favorites at home against App State. Shout out to all my guys in North Carolina who went to App State. A lot of guys I worked with are alumni. That's the word.
Yeah, there you go.
Good job.
So I would take App State to cover here, but I do think that Miami's going to squeak it out just simply because they've got more alleged talent on the field.
Possibly.
Alleged.
You consider that talent.
I mean, not compared to Bama, but like maybe compared to App State.
I agree there. It's just
It was a tough break for Miami.
I wanted to pick an upset too, so I think that
That's fair.
there was a lot of things that gave it credence, so I went with it.
Yeah, that's fair.
You could have picked Kansas as your upset.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, again, I think Miami, they took a tough draw last week, taking number 1 Alabama week 1, and then they got Bryce Young. So, you're not going to have, you're going to look bad against that in that scenario. So I'm curious to what Miami does, if they're going to be like, all right, this is the crappy team that we've known, and the U is not back. Or this is like, okay, Alabama was really, really good. This is actually a good Miami team, but I got to just go with App State. It's easy win. And now College Game Day is headed to the Cy-Hawk rivalry. That's the name of it. But
Gross.
yeah, that's the Cy-Hawk Trophy. That's a big one right there. Number 10 Iowa will be traveling to number 9 Iowa State. Christian, You love the Big Ten.
Yeah, I picked this on the Debbie Royale on Tuesday too, so this one was easy for me. I think Iowa wins this game, and the reason I think Iowa wins this game, Tyler Goodson ran all over Indiana, who was ranked very highly. A lot of people thought Indiana were legit, and Iowa came out and they punched Indiana right in the mouth twice to open the game, went up 14-0, and then just dominated from there. Meanwhile, Iowa State was struggling to pull out a 14-point or a 5-point win against, I think it was 14-9 was the final score against Northern Iowa, which is just gross. You have Breece Hall, who's supposedly RB1. You have Brock Purdy, who got some NFL draft hype last year. You've got Charlie Kohler, who is supposed to be an NFL tight end, and you're struggling to play UNI. I think Iowa goes in there. It's a Big Ten team against, probably an overrated Big 12 team, in my opinion. So I am picking Iowa this week.
Yeah, Jared, who you got?
Yeah, I like all those reasons, Christian. I'm with you too. It's going to be a big game in the state of Iowa, but I think Iowa's going to edge out Iowa State. Probably more than edge them out, but Iowa's going to get the win.
Yeah, I'm rolling Iowa as well. Honestly, biggest thing for me is I think this game hits the under. Obviously, Iowa has 23 straight games of allowing 24 or less points. I think that continues, and they just know how to win in that scenario.
Yeah, I think Iowa is just gonna be it's just a better team. Everyone was talking last week that Indiana was going to be that team to make a run in the Big Ten, and then Iowa walks into their home stadium and just absolutely dominates Indiana. I like this Iowa team. Riley Moss 2 pick sixes last week. That was phenomenal for them. I'm gonna go. I have to go with the Hawkeyes here. I think they are just the better overall team. Iowa State, they didn't look good last week. Brock Purdy was decent, but he wasn't the top tier talent that we were expecting him to be. I like the Hawkeyes to get the win.
Good stuff. Which
brings us to our game of the week. And I'm still surprised game day is not going there because I would rather spend my time. Game's in Columbus, right?
Sure is.
Yes.
Of course, I'd rather go to Columbus, Ohio than anywhere in Iowa. But number 12, Oregon will be making a visit. Oh, does he? Brutus? Yeah, you go, Jared.
Split the difference,
number 12, Oregon will be making a trip to visit number 3, Ohio State. I'll let the 2 Ohio residents. I don't want to say Ohio fans, State fans, since someone's apparently a North Carolina fan.
Yeah.
Bring up that comment for you.
I
just remember that when you.
Well, as an actual Ohio State fan, I think the reason game day is not there is because they know this is not going to be that great of a game. I think this is kind of like the Miami-Bama matchup last week, where in theory, rankings-wise, it should be a decent game, but it's just a team being clearly outmatched. Ohio State, like you said earlier in the show, did not look good, especially in the first half. Stroud looked nervous a ton, but he turned it on the second half. The defense struggled in the first half to make a ton of tackles. I would say almost every run, the first tackle was broken. Second half, again, looked better. So I expect them to come out firing to shut up any doubters kind of situation. It's just outmatched, really.
Yep. I am with you.
There you go, Christian. I want to bring that up again.
Yeah, I think if I need that on Twitter. I just need that posted to my Twitter because people post me stuff.
I got you.
Well, a lot of people at this point know you live in Columbus too.
I know.
So it doesn't help.
It's a problem for sure. However, in this game, I think if Kayvon Thibodeau was playing, I think we might be talking in a little different light. However, he was in a walking boot. I don't know. He was day to day. He might be playing, but it seems
looking
as though
up right now.
Yeah, even if he does, I think he'll probably be limited. And so he's also going against 5 starting offensive tackles on 1 starting offensive line.
Yeah,
Ohio State offensive line is my favorite position group in all of football. They are just the definition of hog mollies, just so fun to watch. And so I think it's going to be a nice little. They're going to do some quick hitters to get Olave more touches and Garrett Wilson more touches, and then they're just going to explode all over this defense. So, yes, I said it like yes, phrasing is fun. So yeah, Ohio State for sure.
Yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau's status being uncertain right now, it's hard to pick the game because he's going to be a difference maker if he's on the field. He's that dominant of a lineman. Again, he's going against Ohio State's offensive line, which is going to be top tier. If he's not on the field, I think or Ohio State's going to be able to just C.J. Stroud's going to have a lot more time in the pocket. He's going to be able to make the throws. The receiver's going to get open. The rushing game is going to be there. That true threat coming down on the offense on the defensive line is not going to be there for Ohio State. So if he doesn't play, I think it's 100% Ohio State no matter what. If he does play, I think, Oregon now stands better of a chance. I think the game's a lot closer. I still think Ohio State wins in the end. But he's one of those players that he's such a difference maker. If he doesn't play, Ohio State should stomp right over them. And now we're talking about how good Ohio State is. But it's all going to come down to when he plays. And I'm sure we won't find out until, 20 minutes before the game when he's out in pads or if he's, out there in his sweatsuit. Jared, finish us off. Who's winning our game of the week this week?
I thought you might have forgot about me.
Sorry, I couldn't see behind Brutus.
He's behind Brutus. We can't see it.
Yeah. So, both teams are coming off of a win last week. I think we were.
Jared, you gotta move your head a little bit. I can't see it. Brutus is blocking it. There you go.
We were thinking, Ohio State was going to have a bigger win against Minnesota, but that ended up being a bit of a tougher contest. But they found their rhythm coming into the end of the game. Whereas Oregon, they got the win, but they didn't really do anything too exciting. And, it kind of seemed like they slowed down halfway through the game and then did just enough to get the win at the end. So, for me, it's really easy to go with Ohio State. I think they're a better team, but they also have the momentum going with them too.
Yeah. Again,
I was just gonna add that there was a real possibility that Oregon lost last week. Fresno's a good team, but they shouldn't have been hanging with Oregon. So Anthony Brown sucks too. So that's a problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype going for Oregon going the year. Like I picked them to win the Pac-12. Because I thought I had high hopes for Anthony Brown. I had high hopes, obviously. Wasn't expecting Kayvon Thibodeau to get hurt. And I know he's one of those guys that he's such a dominant player. He's going to make a difference no matter what. He's on the field, he's off the field. It's going to show his value. But again, they should not have been hanging. Fresno should not be hanging with Oregon. Even saying Minnesota should not have been hanging with Ohio State as long as they did. But again, in the end, Ohio State has way more talent.
No doubt.
Absolutely. Well, that was a fun time, a fun, great debut episode of the College Football Cut. I'm sure all of our picks aren't going to come true, but Christian and Randy, thank you guys for joining us, being our first ever celebrity guest pickers. B-list celebrities. Some people don't like you guys.
Or they all like Randy.
Yeah. This guy. Right? Everyone loves Randy.
Yeah.
Except that guy at the intramural game that tried to kill us.
But he didn't like Sean Moore. I just stepped in.
That's true. I do want to preface all of these picks. It's actually not a preface anymore. It's just a statement. I went 0-7 on the Debbie Royale last week in my picks. So
could you have told me this before I asked you to come on the show next time, maybe?
Well, I'm hoping, I'm in third place out of 3 over there. And I'm hoping that, I can add these picks in to just give myself a little bit better of a chance over there. So I'm just going to add them to the doc, and they're not even going to notice.
Shocked you're in third place. Crazy.
It's kind of my brand.
Well, guys, that was a fun episode. Jared, you got anything else to wrap us up?
No, this is a good time. Looking forward to next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we'll be back next week. Hopefully, a lot more exciting stuff, more fun games that we'll break down all of week 2. Look ahead to week 3. Christian, Randy, it was a pleasure. Always a pleasure when I see, my fellow CSU intramural mentors. We'll go with that. Just
like
need
that.
Sweet and Randy
Good
to
try.
complete the Mount Rushmore of CSU intramurals.
Yeah.
But for Jared Terrell, I'm Adam Mack. It was a fun one. Tune into the cut for all your fantasy football, college football, just football. American football. If you like American football, tune in. I don't know how many shows you all have. You have too many at this point.
It's a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
You have too many. Just keep tuning into the cut every day. Is there a day they shouldn't tune in because there won't be anything?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Right
Hey,
now.
Saturday.
Take the day off.
Saturday.
No, Saturday you need to watch college football.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
for us, we don't have a live stream Tuesday and Saturday currently. Every other day we do.
Okay, well, just keep tuning into the cut till you find a show you like. Preferably every Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern time, whatever floats your boat. It was a lot of fun for our debut show. It's only going to get better from here. See you all next week.
Check you later.
Go Herd.